Hey, welcome out to the A.C.E Football Academy, and this is your Friday Footy Talk for July 25th, 2025. I am Coach Dunham, joined alongside Coach Hamilton. Coach, today, we're always talking about what our next episode is going to be, and we've had some good times here lately. We're kind of getting back into the serious aspect of the game itself, and one thing that you and I have chatted about years about the players that we coach and how they struggle with their first touch. So today we're going to discuss why first touch matters. We're not really going to get into really perfecting that first touch. We're going to discuss why it matters, how it's important, why our players should stop shooting goals at the beginning of practice, start working on first touch, because, we got to start shooting goals and do the crossbar challenge the first thing we get to practice every day, which as coaches, I don't know about you, drives me insane.
Oh, it's a rule for me.
And I've also had the same rule. So, Coach, we're going to get into that aspect of first touch today. One thing, I got a quote here. It's not a huge deal. Your first touch is your passport in the game. It tells everyone where you're allowed to go next. And really what that's saying is the ball telling you where you're going to go? Or are you telling the ball where you're going to go? And that's a major thing that a lot of young kids need to understand is you need to find a way to control the ball. Tell it where you want it to go because that first touch is going to lead into pressure or no pressure, the right pass or the wrong pass, or the best shot or the worst shot. What are your thoughts on this before we get into here, Coach?
Yeah, it's one of those things where, when it always feels like almost, and I don't know how it is for you, but it almost always feels like a cop out for me as a coach, right? When a player says, "Hey, what can I work on? Hey, what should I work on?" And the answer is first touch, right? But that truly is the answer for everybody all the time. Everybody should be working on their first touch at every single training when you're practicing at home. First touch should be one of the first things that you're focusing on. I go back to friend of the podcast, Trip Rogers, who, by the way, shout out to him. He was just named the head coach at Transylvania University for the women. So Congratulations to Coach Rogers. But, he always talked about how even at the elite of elite college programs, they run a 2-hour practice, a 2.5-hour session. And that first hour and a half is all around your technical ability, which in turn means it's around your first touch. So the first touch is just a crucial aspect of getting yourself to where you want to be as an individual on the soccer field.
Well, Coach, your first touch sets up everything.
Everything.
It's just like I said, it sets up where you're going to go, that pass, that shot, that cross, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
It's going to decide what your options are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to set up your speed of play. Sometimes your first touch may need an extra touch.
Yeah.
And that's going to slow your play down. And it controls the tempo.
Yeah.
Sometimes your first touch has to relieve that pressure. Your first touch has to go into space. Maybe your first touch is out of the air.
Ooh.
Another crucial aspect of the game of whether it be a long ball over top to the wing or swinging it around the back. Your first touch as a center back, and you've got pressure all over you from that striker.
Yeah, so that first touch, it's that first action of when you're receiving the ball, right? So Coach Dunham has played me a pass, and the very first time I touch that ball, whether you play me a good pass or a poor pass, right? That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the way I'm going to receive that pass, and you are so 100% correct, and I preach all the time. And I think this is what makes first touch difficult, and what separates a great soccer player from a mediocre soccer player or a good soccer player, right? So, you have those moments, and I do want to get into everything you talked about how a poor touch can lead to pressure and all that kind of stuff, but the first touch in a soccer match, it can go both ways, right? Is my first touch so bad that now it creates a 50-50 ball, or now I've just immediately turned it back over? Versus also, is my first touch so bad that I've killed it on my foot. And so now I have to take that second touch to get it off my foot before I can shoot, pass, or dribble. And then in that moment, I have initiated pressure, right? The defender has gotten to me. So there's so much that goes along with that aspect of first touch. Like, it can't be too hard, but you also don't want it too soft. And so it is those moments, it is a very, very difficult thing to train. And I guess my biggest takeaway for all of this is, and we may get to this, I haven't looked down our thing, but that first touch comes with just ball mastery, right? And being comfortable on the soccer ball. And that is my biggest thing in this episode is, as a player, how comfortable are you with the ball at your feet?
Yeah, I think the other side of that is realizing your own talent at the first touch. A lot of kids think, well, I got the ball, I got around the defender, and then I made a pass. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean you've got a good first touch. A poor first touch could put you into instant pressure where you may have to do something magical to get around that person. Maybe you're just more athletic.
Or stronger.
Where your bad first touch and your athleticism still gets you around other people. Yeah. Where a poor touch could be straight up losing possession of the ball because instead of cushioning that first touch, it rockets off 5 yards away from you straight to the player, which we've seen many, many times at the teams that we've coached. And I love this last part of this. A poor first touch could give you a missed opportunity. That missed through ball. That missed shot.
Yep.
That missed cross to an open person on the far post. Those missed opportunities is why we're having this discussion here.
Yeah.
On why you need to be focusing on your first touch way more than you be working on your shooting from 30 yards away or hitting an upper 90 every time you take a shot.
Yeah.
Your first touch needs to give you a time where you have time, you have space, and you're growing that confidence with the ball. Just like you said, the right thing. That ball mastery here, Coach. Even in elite soccer, players aren't creating time. They take time with their first touch.
Yeah,
and
correct.
you've got to really think about what that means when you read that.
Yeah, and so, one of the things that I feel like I say constantly, and it is, I feel like I say this a lot at halftime of a lot of my games. I say it at water breaks in my session. Like, hey, we're doing the hard part correctly, right? We're winning the ball, but then we immediately give it away because our first touch is so poor, right? Oh my goodness. Dunham, you did a great job of intercepting that pass. You did a great job of anticipating that ball out of the air, but then your touch goes 8 yards away from you, right? And so we just give it away. And so I think that's what makes a first touch really difficult is there is so much that goes into it. And that's why we're having this conversation. To stress the importance of that first touch.
And off that last comment, the importance of that first touch and why we're discussing why your first touch should be a priority.
Yep.
Look, if you're a parent listening to this, I want you to say to your kid when you drop them off, hey, don't go out there and start shooting on goal. Get a teammate and start passing 15 yards apart and work on your first touch.
Yeah.
Work on making your first touch go where you want it to go and making sure your teammate there is on the same thing. Now you're getting truly warmed up for a practice. Let's be honest here. Ripping shots from 30 yards out really isn't getting you ready for practice. It's getting somebody about ready to get hurt because it's going to take one in the head.
Well, and think about like in a match. Just think about the percentages. In a match, how many 30-yard shots are you going to have? A lot of times, none, right? But how many opportunities are you going to get at a first touch? Multiple. And so just that aspect alone, when you are dropping those kids off or you are a player that's listening, that first touch is so important, and so I love the note you have here. Every player touches the ball at some point in the game. Not every player is going to score. Not every player is going to make the cross, but everyone's going to touch the ball, and it is about the ability to take that touch and do something positive with
Coach,
it.
I mean, that's the essence of this entire conversation.
Yeah.
When you're playing on Sunday, you got a game, you might have 3 players that actually take shots on goal.
Yeah.
But every player at some point is going to have that first touch where they've got to gain control and find that option to play the ball off to, or put across, or take a switch, whatever it may be. But think about that. Every player on the field has to have that control and be able to receive it and distribute it in one way. Not every player is going to get an opportunity to make a shot and score a goal. And that's why we're having this conversation. That's why first touch is so important. So we're going to get into an example here, Coach, and let me see if you can catch where I'm going here. You've got 2 kids that Coach is analyzing or evaluating, and one kid can juggle it 200 times, no doubt. The other kid, he might get, 40, 50 touches in there. But now you start serving them a ball on the ground, a line drive, something out of the air, and that kid that had 200 juggles, he is really struggling to receive that ball properly. The other guy that got maybe 40, 50 juggles, his first touch is going exactly where he wants it to go, and he's getting that pass right off the bat. Who do you like there, Coach?
I mean, in the aspect of playing the soccer match, right? Then you're definitely going with the kid who takes the perfect first touch, right? But I also do think there's a correlation there. A lot of times, the kid that can juggle 200 times is also the kid that can take the first touch.
I'm glad you caught that. I'm glad you caught that.
Every time, right?
Absolutely.
And the kid that can get 40 or 50%, 40 or 50 juggles is also the kid who probably takes a good first touch 40 or 50% of the time, right? We have, a fellow coach and I, we've taken over a new team, and we've set a goal for the players to get 20 juggles by the end of the fall. And you would think we have asked them to, whatever that over the top suggestion might be. We're like, no, I want you to get 20 juggles, right? And again, you see it on the field so much, and I think, as a coach, and maybe this is where you were kind of getting towards, and then we'll circle back to the juggles and things like that. But I don't need you to be perfect every time, because that's unrealistic, right? But the consistency of your first touch has to be there. I have to know that 8 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10 times, I mean, even 7 out of 10 times, I have to know that when I play Dunham the ball, he's going to take a successful first touch.
Yeah, and again, you're taking the words right out of my mouth here. It's that consistency. You caught what I was getting to. The kid that can juggle 200 times probably is developing or has developed that proper first touch. So what I'm saying there is, even though you can juggle, that first touch still matters. Mm-hmm. So while you're juggling out in the backyard, you should also be working on balls out of the air. Somebody giving you a line drive, somebody giving you something on the ground, something from an angle. Variety is working on that first touch, while juggling is that foundation of working on that first touch.
And so I'm scrolling through your notes here. I don't want to jump ahead, and I am going to jump ahead. Sorry, Coach. But I think those things that you just said are so important, right? When you're working in the backyard. To train your first touch, is it nice if I have a teammate who lives next door and I'm be like, hey, let's go? Of course it is, but I don't need a teammate to train my first touch. We talk all the time about a ball on a wall, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's no better teammate than a brick wall, a garage door, a concrete wall. There's no better teammate, because now I can do anything I want with that ball off that brick wall, right? I can throw it high. I can drive it hard so it comes back hard. But all those things, and we'll get into some specific examples later, but, we talk about that consistency, and we talk about that confidence on the ball, and that just comes from working.
Yeah, 100%, Coach. So let's dig into, before we get to some examples, kind of what you're alluding to there, what's a coach looking for? And that's really what we need the player that's listening to this to understand here is, you may think while you're getting around players with your athleticism, that doesn't necessarily mean your first touch is great. So let's talk about some things that the coach is going to be evaluating, whether it be in practice, in a game, watching film, tryouts, just like you said. Number one, your touch direction. Does it move away from pressure? Is the ball clearly going where you want it to go? We talk about opening our bodies up. We're talking about being on our toes. We're talking about swiveling your head before the ball comes to you. All of that plays into your first touch because it's relieving that pressure. So number one, coach, touch direction. Am I going away from pressure, and am I touching that ball where I want it to go, and not vice versa?
Yeah, and I mean, this brings in a whole different element of the first touch, right? And it's just your ability to scan, right? Your ability to know where you are on the field, know where the pressure is. Of course, it also helps when I have a teammate who's like, hey, man on, or hey, you got, a turn, or hey, you have some time, right? Those types of things help in my first touch, but you're absolutely right. Am I able to take my first touch to the point where I want it to go?
Yeah, the next thing that the coach is going to be looking for is the weight of your touch. Is that ball going 5-10 yards away from you because you've got a rock of a foot?
Mm-hmm.
You need to learn how to cushion that ball. And like we said already, it's not just balls that are on the ground.
Yeah.
It's line drives. It's crosses. It's somebody did a goal kick. Somebody's doing a punt. Somebody's doing a throw-in. Mm-hmm. Are you able to bring those down with your foot with the proper weight where it just falls straight in front of you and you can play it right off the bat? Yeah. That is another big thing. Soft, hard, the weight of our touches.
Absolutely. And I think for me as a coach and coaching for several years now, for a lot of years now, this is the hardest part, right? You get players who that original first touch is always too hard and it always creates a 50-50 ball or it creates a turnover or whatever it is, right? And then you swing into that opposite, which is what I was talking about earlier, where the touch becomes too soft. And so now my first touch creates a third or fourth touch because I'm trying to get this ball back out to where I want it to be, right? And out in front of me. And so I think the weight of that touch, I think it is I think it's more crucial than these other things that we're going to discuss. With touch direction, we're going to get into a couple other things in a minute. But, the weight of that touch, ideally, when we talk first touch, and sometimes my first touch does need to be a shot on goal or a through ball or whatever it is, right? But when you look at first touch, to me, my first touch should allow me on my second touch to dribble, shoot, or pass, right? My second touch shouldn't be trying to win the ball back from you, or my second touch shouldn't be getting that ball off my foot because I've killed it when it hit my ankle or whatever it is.
Yeah, that kind of goes into my last two. I'm kind of going to combine the last two where you have the awareness where you're touching that ball with intention.
Mm-hmm.
You have an intent with the ball to go in a certain direction. But just like you talked about there, Coach, your reaction following that first touch.
Yeah.
My first touch shouldn't need a second touch for control.
Yes.
My second touch should be the new intent with that ball. My next intent is to step into a dribble to get around.
I love that wording.
To play the ball out to the wing, to play that through ball, or even shoot. My first touch should set up the next action.
I love that.
That penetrates through that defense.
I love the way you phrase that. I'm actually going to write it down here in a minute and steal it. But yeah, I mean, your first touch should set up the next action. I love that. I couldn't have phrased it any better, right? And and then it goes back to that awareness. My awareness is going to be whether my next action is to shoot, dribble, or pass. But the touch itself has to carry me or has to lead me into that next action.
Yeah, so if you're comparing yourself, if you're the player here or you're the parent watching, watch your kid and watch the other kids. If one kid is touching the ball and always needs that second touch or second touch for a reset, you're always playing behind. You're fidgety, you're getting frustrated, you're trying to get the extra touch in there.
Yeah.
If your first touch, sets you up to shoot, pass, or dribble immediately, you're already winning without the ball. Yeah. You're already moving your team forward. You're progressing. And that's what's really going to, I guess, develop you as a player. Yeah. Because after that, the speed of the game is slowing down now. Yep. Because now your first touch is getting your team in better positions rather than always trying, like you said, winning the ball back or getting out of pressure or, taking 3 touches to get that control. So a lot of that matters. Coach, let's get into some of the techniques here about the touch over technique. What's your evaluation of this here?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, a great first touch is going to set up your technique, right? Whatever that is, maybe I'm big and strong, and so my first touch might lead me into you every time, but I'm stronger than you are, so I can win the second ball, right? But that's not what we want, because I'm not always going to be stronger than you, right? There's going to come a day, and I say this with players, especially at a young age, who just use their speed all the time, right? To just outrun everybody. There's going to come a moment in your soccer career where those things don't matter as much. Speed always matters. You and I say that all the time. You can't coach speed, right? But you can train first touch. And if you give me a player who might not be the quickest on the field, might not have be the most agile, but their first touch is taking them into positive space 80-90% of the time they touch the ball, give me that player over a player who has top-notch speed or, whatever it is. But I want that player who has the skill and the confidence with the ball at their feet, or the ball out of the air, especially, right? Especially where you and I coach in youth soccer. That I want that first touch over your technique almost every time.
Well, let's talk about that, Coach. What is the difference between control and technique? Number one, the control is setting up your technique. Your technique is the proper way to pass the ball, the proper way to make a switch or a cross, the proper way to make a through ball. All these different ways of striking the ball differently, and those are your techniques. Your control is setting those up.
Yep.
If I'm playing the wing and I'm taking a long ball over the top, my control is bringing that down perfectly for me to make a cross on that next touch or taking a shot on that next touch.
Yep.
My control, like we said before, is setting up that next intentional move to move my team down the field.
Yeah, I love the quote you have written here. Without control, technique becomes wishful thinking, right? I can say all the time, oh, Dunham's going to pass me this ball, and I'm going to take a touch, and I'm going to put it in the back of the net. I cannot wait. Come on, Dunham, get me the ball. And then Dunham gives me the ball, and my first touch carries it right to the goalkeeper, right? Or my first touch gets stuck on my foot, and it allows the defender to recover, right? And so I can have the best finishing technique in the world, but if I can't set myself up to finish, then I'm in a world of trouble.
Coach, that is a perfect example, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I think a lot of people don't understand the difference between control and the technique of basic functional skills in the game. So great breakdown there. So let's talk about some training or some coaching tips that you can do either on your own, hopefully on your own, or maybe with a teammate. We already brought this up, Coach, the wall pass. Yeah. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. It can be side of the house, your neighbor's fence, a shed, something that can just bounce the ball back to you on, and something that it can be on the ground. Maybe you can give it a bounce pass, something out of the air. All of those are going to be things you're going to interact with in a game. The next thing is that touch and turn. Maybe hit off the wall, and now my first touch is a turn with that ball. And different ways of manipulating the ball in directions that I want it to go with intention, as we said many, many times. If you've got, like you said, some buddies in the neighborhood, put some pressure on you. Hit it off the wall, and they've got 3 seconds to come up on you and put some pressure on you. And now your first touch is under pressure. Another game-like situation. And you've got to learn to move that ball with intent into space, away from pressure. And then you guys rotate. So there's many things that we can do to work on our first touch and our control of that ball. But if you're working with somebody or you're working with your own kid, praise that first touch. Don't praise that pass. Don't praise that shot. Praise that first touch, because if they can develop that early on, once they get into high school and beyond, it's going to be a game changer for them throughout their life.
Yeah, so I love several things you said here, right? So as a coach, and I'm assuming you're probably the same way. I'm assuming that most of our coaches that are listening are the same way. Most of the players are listening the same way. You know, not rarely, but not often either. But somewhere in there, are we ever doing a drill with without a teammate or without two teammates in groups of three or whatever it is, right? Because we need somebody to play the pass or we need somebody to play the cross or whatever it is, right? But this season especially with my girls team at Caudle, and I told you this earlier, I mean, our first 45 minutes of training, every single player has the ball. And I tell them every single time, hey, the fact that we all have a ball during this 45 minutes should tell you that you don't need anybody else at home except your ball to run these drills and to work that first touch. And so that's why, a wall is your best friend, right? And you see those clips all the time with a ball on a wall, but I do, there is a lot of value in having that neighbor or having that older brother or older sister or having mom or dad and I would encourage even mom or dad, like, you don't have to be a fantastic soccer player to apply pressure, right? And even if the pressure is just clapping and yelling, here I come, right? Even just, just the voice, right? To just apply that pressure to your player to see how they adapt to it, right? So I love all of these things that you mentioned, but the biggest thing that I like is your praise the first touch more than the shot, right? Because that's really hard to do. And when you said that, and I've quickly reflected on my coaching, and I was like, I don't do that enough, right? Because what happens? Somebody scores, and I'm like, done. Great shot. Way to find the corner. Great placement, right? And I ignore the touch that you took. Not ignore, but you don't acknowledge, you don't praise the touch that you took that set up that goal.
Absolutely, Coach. I love everything you just said there. Let's recap a few things that we've gone over here, Coach. We've kind of drilled this down. First touch is the most important step in everything, because we didn't really bring this up. It also involves defensively.
Oh, yeah.
Whether their first touch went straight to you and then your first touch went straight back to them, well, now that's another issue.
Yeah.
So your first touch is vital in the attacking side and the defensive side. Every little thing matters that we do in every game. Every missed touch, every missed opportunity matters. And if you're working on that first touch, it's going to benefit you down the road. Yeah. Train daily. It doesn't need to be 2 to 3 hours a day.
No.
And I know a lot of us are getting into our high school, middle school training sessions. Club is kicking off here soon. If you haven't started your club practices already, get outside and start working on those first touches. Yeah. Call your buddies. Get a sibling. Get a mom and dad. Just say, hey, start throwing me tosses in different directions, different angles. Let me work on that. And make sure, if you are that parent, praise them on doing that extra work, because it is going to matter. And then compare yourself. Compare yourself to maybe your teammates on your own team, or maybe you're practicing with players that are older than you. Compare it to them.
Yeah.
Watch some videos and compare it to the pros. Where are you lacking? Where do you need to, strengthen your skills there and better develop there? I challenge everybody there for the rest of the summer, at least 4 times a week. Get outside for 15 minutes and work on something. Mm-hmm. It could be your juggling. It could be the wall ball. It could be working with a buddy or a parent or whatever it may be. Get out there and work on those first touches, folks.
I love that. And shoot us those videos on social media. Let us see you working on that first touch. We would love to see that.
All right, folks, this has been the A.C.E Football Academy. This has been your Friday Footy Talk. I am Coach Dunham. This is Coach Hamilton. Go kick some ace.